Hello and welcome. While most of the time I like to talk about movies on this channel, every once in a while I do like to talk about TV shows. And I finally caught up on pretty much all of the TV shows I wanted to check out from 2022. So I wanted to rank some of my favorites and see what you guys thought of the list, as well as some of your favorite TV shows that I might have missed throughout the year. So let's get started. Welcome once again. My name is Austin, and on this channel I discuss one of my favorite things in the world, movies, and how I tie together faith, film, and everything that's in between. And in this video we're branching out just a little bit with my 10 favorite TV shows from 2022. Starting off at number 10, we have the show The Terminal List. This is a show that was released on Amazon Prime Video and stars Chris Pratt as well as Taylor Kish and some others. I thought this was just a really great espionage military thriller. I thought the pacing was really good throughout, aside from a little bit of a repetitive nature in the first, well, not the first, but in like the first act a little bit of the series. It got a little repetitive, but I was still on board and following it. And then as the series continued, it just continued to get deeper. There was more twists and turns along the way as more reveals were made. And I thought just overall, it was a great series. Really cool to see Chris Pratt do something different, much more serious tonally. And it was just really cool to see a story like this brought to life on the screen. It was based on a book, I believe, which I have not read, but nonetheless, I loved the story and I loved the TV show. Also, be sure to join me in the comment down below with some of your favorite shows from the year. I don't get a chance to watch everything. I'm a bit more of a movie guy than a TV guy, so I would love to hear your recommendations on some of the best shows of the year that I should check out. Next, in the 9th slot, we have Rick and Morty Season 6. I have been a fan of Rick and Morty for a few years now. I've always enjoyed just the blend of comedy as well as serious themes on humanity and just all of the different things that this show explores. I've always thought it's just a beautiful mesh of serious and comedy. And so coming off of season 5, the previous season, I thought it was okay, one of the weaker seasons. They did a lot of weird stuff and a lot of stuff that kind of turned me off in some certain ways personally. But then once we got into season 6 and things started rolling, they did some really interesting things with Rick's character. I thought were really exploring some really interesting sides of his personality that he tries to hide from his family and stuff. Besides that, the comedy continues to be just on point. The social commentary that the series makes on society as well as just humanity, just all of these different things that it chooses to explore thematically. I love each of the ends of the episodes where they talk about what inspired them to make the episode, what it's exploring, all of the ways it impacts the different characters. It's just a really great show that I just continue to enjoy, and I thought season 6 was a really good return to form after the somewhat lesser season 5. Next, in the 8th slot, we have 1899. This is an Netflix original series. Unfortunately, it did get canceled, so we will not be getting a season 2 and seeing where the story goes next, which was a huge bummer for me because I loved this series. I thought it was really, really well crafted as far as the filmmaking of it. They did the volume stage, which is like what The Mandalorian and a few other series are using. I thought they utilized that really well as creating these tangible sets of these huge rooms that are taking place on this ship that is traveling across from Europe to the United States, carrying a bunch of different immigrants. So I thought filmmaking wise and set design wise, they did a really good job with the series. And then besides that, there were some excellent performances from different actors around the world. They wanted to have a very mixed cast as far as the backgrounds that these actors had and portraying them accurately to their origins. We have different Chinese ethnicities. We have some European ones, including like French and German. So there's just some really cool variety to the characters. The really cool thing that I appreciated was they spoke their native languages. So while about half of the show I would say is in English, when someone is German, they're speaking to other German people in German. If someone's Swedish, they're going to be speaking the Swede language. And so I really thought that they did a good job with that. And not only do they utilize the languages for that story aspect, it also helps to kind of create more barriers between the characters when there's a language divide of some not understanding the different languages, trying to communicate still through body language and stuff. So, I mean, besides that, there was just this really cool, really mysterious story about what's actually going on this ship. It goes through a story of these immigrants traveling across sea, and the previous ship that went across from this company had disappeared 6 months ago, and they actually come across it, and then all of this weird science fiction-esque stuff starts happening on the ship, and we're trying to figure out what's really going on here. I thought the mystery was really great, top-notch performances, really great production design. I'm so bummed that we are not going to be getting a season 2 for this one because I loved this series. Next, in the 7th slot, you might have thought this would have been higher on my list considering my huge fandom of the Lord of the Rings franchise, but Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power comes in the 7th slot. Now, while I really did enjoy this series, I thought we had really solid performances. Similar to 1899, we had fantastic production design, shooting a lot of stuff on location with tangible sets, and besides that, the sequences that were heavy in special effects were movie quality special effects. They looked incredible, and so all of that coming together made for what was a really good series. At times it moved at a slower pace, which didn't necessarily bother me, but it is worth noting that if you're not into that, a slower pace might hinder your experience a little bit. But as the show continues to move on, it picks up that pace. We understand more of the motivations of the characters. Their storylines start to intersect as they start off separate and they slowly move closer and closer together. There's some great twists and reveals at the end of the series that make me really excited moving forward. So I still really enjoyed the series and can't wait to see where it goes next. It just didn't quite rank higher than some other series that I loved even more this past year. Next, in the 6th slot, rounding out the bottom 5, we have what was actually my favorite show of the year for a little while, but other stuff just came out and moved the list just further and further down. But we have Amazon Prime original Reacher. I thought this was a fantastic series. I was not familiar with Alan Ritchson's work. I don't think I had seen him in anything prior to this series, but I thought he was fantastic as Reacher. He really carries the performance not only from an emotional and a performance standpoint, but he has that physicality that Reacher has from what I've heard from the source material. But I've always been one who's been a fan of the Tom Cruise Jack Reacher movies, but this easily is just more and more above what that show was capable of doing. I thought the fleshed out story across a season was really interesting, getting to see him work through the crime and solve the murders and mysteries along the way, all of the different twists and turns, reveals. It was nothing absolutely groundbreaking and mind-blowing, but it was just really solid writing, really great performances. Also, Malcolm Goodwin was another actor I'm not familiar with, but he gave a really good performance as the kind of main deputy or the officer for the town. I really thought their dynamic and their chemistry was really good, really fun, with the camaraderie between them, picking on each other and whatnot. Again, while this was initially higher on my list, we just got some other series that I liked just a little bit more that kind of bumped it down this far. Next, in the 5th slot, we have one of the greatest joys that I had experiencing this past year, which is a new anime series called Spy Family. I absolutely adore this show. I thought the characters were so genuine and so realistic, while just the ridiculous nature of the series at the same time. It is this anime series that tells the story of a guy called Twilight, which is his code name as a spy, and he gets this mission to go after this political figure. And so to do so, he has to form this cover with a fake family. So he adopts a daughter from an orphanage, and then he meets a woman in the town that he lives in, or the city that he lives in, and convinces her to become his fake wife, all to accomplish this mission and be a facade. But what not all of them know is that he is a spy. They don't know he's a spy. And then Lloyd, and the woman, Yor, don't know that the daughter that they have is actually telepathic and can read their minds. So she knows that he's a spy, but is keeping it a secret. And then Yor, the mother, ends up actually being an assassin. So they all have this secret that they're keeping from each other. One being an assassin, the other being a telepath, and the other being a spy. While the daughter knows it all, she's trying to keep their secrets, hold their family together. It tells this really charming, just genuinely fun to experience and watch story of them and the shenanigans that they get into, as well as trying to maintain the mission and the facade that they have. It's a pure joy of a series. I've been recommending it to so many different people. I just got my coworker to start watching it. She is loving it so far because I just wouldn't stop talking to her about it. So one of my highest recommendations I will give for this year is to check out Spy Family. The first season is streaming on Hulu. You can watch it there. I've been watching it on Crunchyroll, but it's a fantastic show, one of my favorites of the year. Next in the fourth slot, another one that was on my favorites list for the year, we have the Hulu original series, The Bear. This show is absolutely incredible. It has some of the best performances I have seen all year. I'm not familiar with many of the actors that were in it, so for me it was an introduction to them, but I thought the series was incredible. It tells the story of this guy who works at one of the top restaurants in the world, and his brother runs kind of like a family local diner in Chicago, and the brother commits suicide and leaves the restaurant to him. So he quits his job working at a 5-star restaurant that's world-renowned to come and run the family business. And so it's all about the strife that kind of, and the combative nature of the people that work there, and him just coming in and wanting to make it the best that it can be. So it's very heavy on the drama, but it's very genuine, the performances and stuff, very authentic. One of the episodes does an incredible one take for pretty much the entire episode that's just constantly building up tension between the kitchen staff and him running things and whatnot. So it's a fantastic series. Another one I continually recommend to people and can't recommend enough. Like I said, it was on my favorite of the year, #1 slot for a little while, but I just had to put some other stuff a little bit higher. So definitely check out The Bear if you are looking for something that's new, really cool, just kind of easy 6-episode drama series. They are working on a season 2, which I can't wait for that to come out this coming year. So The Bear comes in my 4th slot. Next, technically I'm cheating a little bit with this one, but I mean, this is how they're releasing the show, so I'm just going to go with it in this way. In the 3rd slot, we have another anime series, and that is Attack on Titan, the final season, Part 2. So the way they're doing the final season of this series is each part has been released a year apart. So we've been on this season of the show for a couple of years, but in this 2022 year, we got Part 2, which told its own kind of contained story within the greater story of the season and then of the series. So I will definitely include it on this list because this show repeatedly gets better and continues to blow me away with its storytelling. While I absolutely love the action sequences of this series, they are some of the best I've ever seen put to screen, especially in an animated TV series. And the characters are really interesting. There's a ton of depth and just conflict within each of them, as well as just an interesting nature to each of them, while you are continually understanding them and digging deeper into them, peeling back layers in different ways of looking at heroes differently and maybe the darker sides of them, and looking at the villains differently and maybe the lighter sides of them. There's so much overlap with the differences between them. And then all to lead up to what wrapped up this part of the season with an incredible twist that totally pays off for everything they've been building towards this season, and then makes you look back on the entire series in a new light, in a way that works for the series as well as for what it is doing here and now in the story. So it's one of the greatest series I've ever seen. I've loved this season so far, and this part in particular was no different. I can't wait to see how they wrap up the series this year. Next, in the #2 slot, we have the Netflix original and what's been one of my favorite ongoing series for a number of years, Stranger Things Season 4. This season, which I kind of predicted, just took everything about the series and just turned all of it up an entire level. I thought that they did a great job with the characters while they continued to add depth and intrigue to the returning characters. They gave us incredible new characters like Eddie, which I absolutely loved and would love to see more of him. But just the way that this series has gotten bigger and bigger, but they still are very focused on the story that they're telling and the themes that they're focusing on. all of it just continues to blow me away. The production design, the set design that they are utilizing, as well as the shooting on locations for many of these sequences. The visual effects are movie quality, like as I said with the Lord of the Rings of Power series. The story has gotten bigger, but it is still so focused on where it's going. I'm really interested to see how they're going to wrap this up, as the next season will be the final season for this series. So if for some reason you have not gotten on board with Stranger Things yet, it just gets better and better for the most part, and this season is no different, as one of the best seasons of the series. And then finally, in #1 slot, we have what is probably one of, if not the biggest surprises of the year for me personally. We have the Disney Plus original Andor. Now, Andor is a series I really wasn't looking forward to at all. Of all the slated series that they had within the Star Wars universe, I was like, what are they doing making an Andor series about a guy who died in the movie that we last saw him in? I mean, I love Rogue One, but the guy's dead. Like, what's the point of a backstory for him? And boy, was I wrong, because from the opening sequence to this series, and then as it progresses, everything gets better, and it starts off really good. It's a little slow in the first story arc that we get, but as it progresses, it gets better and better. And in my opinion, this is probably the best thing Disney has done with Star Wars, which is in some senses not saying a lot, but in other senses it's saying a lot. I love Rogue One. I really like The Force Awakens. I've overall enjoyed what they've done, but there's been no roadmap, which has really shown and really hurt the franchise over the past 5 or 10 years. But this is a huge course correct for Disney, and I really hope we continue to get more stuff like this, like Rings of Power and some other shows I've talked about on this ranking. They shoot on location. They build the sets. Everything is so tangible and gritty and hands-on. The themes of this series are dark and mature and very adult. It's very high. It requires you to pay attention and think as you're watching. The story is very deep. There's lots of details. There's different twists along the way. And one of my favorite aspects of this series was the story arc nature of it. Rather than telling, one other thing I was nervous about is it's a 12-episode series. I was like, well, Disney hasn't really done that long of a series yet. Is that really going to work? Is it going to feel too stretched out? Because that's what a lot of the Marvel series have felt like so far, is just a decent story but stretched out too far. But they really, really know what they're doing with this one. The guy that's writing it is doing fantastic work, telling the different story arcs of the first 3 episodes being an arc unto themselves, almost as if they're a movie. And then the following story arc is told over a few more episodes. Then the following story arc is told over a few more. It's almost like watching 3 or 4 different movies about Cassian Andor, and within that, his world and the Star Wars universe. And each one gets better and better. My favorite being the prison arc. I thought that was incredible. Andy Serkis gives a fantastic performance in that. And I know we know he's in Star Wars with being Snoke, but this is even better of a performance. There's so much depth to his character, and he just does such a fantastic job with it. So I can't wait to see where we're going to go next with season 2. I'm glad we're containing this story to 2 seasons, and they're not going to try and drag it out or just bloat it too much. So they know what they want to do with it. There's a beginning and there's an end, and we're moving towards that point. So I'm absolutely loving this series. I think it's fantastic. And for a show that I wasn't necessarily looking forward to this year, it ended up in the #1 slot on my favorites of the year list. So I really enjoyed it. I would love to hear some of your shows that were your favorites from this past year. As I said, I'm not someone who's constantly watching TV. I'm a bit more of a movie guy, as you can see behind me. But so I don't get to watch everything that's out there this year. So if I missed something that you absolutely loved this year, let me know in the comments down below. Like I said, I would love to hear those picks. Thank you for sticking around to the end of this video. I'll see you in the next one.